Hi. I haven't made a video for, it feels like ages. It's probably been a couple of weeks. But I've actually had a really horrible time. Like some really horrible things have happened. Including little Clara, who's the dog that I showed in my last video, was killed in a tragic accident a week ago, on Saturday last week. So it's just been horrible, and I got a new job which I started a couple of weeks ago. Some other stuff's happened. It's just been a really busy and horrible time. So I kind of have wanted to make a number of videos, but I just haven't really A, felt up to it, and B, had time anyway. But I've read a couple of books, so what I'm going to do today is, instead of just feeling guilty about not having done the videos that I intended to do, because I want booktube to be like a fun thing, not a chore, because God knows everybody has enough of them, I'm going to just do a quick wrap-up video of 3 books that I've read in the last 3 weeks, I suppose, 2 to 3 weeks. They are, in chronological order, Purple Hibiscus by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, who was the author of Americana, which I, along with everybody else and their mama, loved. And The Enchanted by Rene Denfeld, which, again, everybody seems to have loved for good reason. And this one I just finished 2 days ago, How to Fight Islamist Terror, is that right? From the Missionary position, which I have some thoughts on. And it's just going to be a quick wrap up, because I don't really want to do 4 reviews, and that would take forever. Purple Hibiscus is a brilliant book. If you've read Americana, I'm sure you will love it. If you haven't read Americana, you'll probably love it. It's a really good book. This is her first, I believe it's her first book, or maybe it's her second, and there may have been some short stories first. It's set in Nigeria, and the main character is Kimberly, who is a 15-year-old girl who lives with her father, or with their family, her mother, her father, and her older brother. And her father is extremely violent. He's abusive physically, emotionally, mentally. He's a very controlling man, and very, well, religious, but not necessarily involved in the church as a minister or anything like that, but involved in the church and the community in a strong way. There's a lot of, I keep saying abuse, there's a lot of abuse. It's hard to read at points, but it takes place around a coup. There's a coup, and her father has a newspaper, and without going into too much detail of the plot, Kimberly and her brother go and live with her aunt for a while, who is a university professor, and it kind of shows a completely different side of the society, and it's a really great book. I highly recommend it. The next book is The Enchanted by Rene Denfeld. I'm not going to do too much of a waxing lyrical about this, because I think every review that I've seen of it so far on BookTube, 3 stand out to me. Jenny at Adultish Books, the girl who I completely have forgotten her name, who read it first, I will link down below, and Stephen from Steve Reads also did a brilliant review of this book. I think it's an important book. It is one that will stick with me for a long time. I enjoyed it. I read it really quickly, and it kind of, it's a book that you can take from it whatever you want. It'll kind of meet you, or you meet it at the level that you're at. You can read it as, yeah, it's a kind of interesting story about something that you may not know about, or it can be a commentary on society and the way that we treat people, and cycles of poverty and abuse, and social justice and all kinds of things. I actually used to work for the correctional services part of the government in Victoria, where I live in Australia, a couple of years ago, and one of the things that I will never ever forget is the way the people that I met and that I was dealing with. I was involved in a homelessness project, and overwhelmingly the people who were going to leave prison and be homeless were in prison for crimes related to homelessness in the first place. And it really just cemented in my mind how ill-equipped society is to deal with many entrenched problems, and that the criminal justice system picks up, I suppose, the slack because it's there. So people get brought into it, and you know, you enter prison and you are never the same again. And for many people, it sets them up for a life of crime or a life of a revolving door of prisons. And it's terrible. And this book is, I suppose, another side of the same coin. It's about abuse and what happens when people from terrible and poverty-stricken parts of the world, or in this case in America, you know, sometimes all roads lead to prison. This book, I felt, when I saw it on the shelf, was daring me to pick it up. It was screaming at me like, what's this? Pick this up. I think it's provocative. The cover is provocative, and I think the entire book is trying to be quite provocative. In some ways it rubbed me up the wrong way, because sometimes I think less is more. But look, it dared me to pick it up, and I picked it up and I read it. Basically, it is a very short book. It's the story of three men living together in an apartment in Denmark. The narrator, whose name either I have forgotten or is never actually mentioned, he's a Pakistani academic living in Denmark. Ravi is a friend of his that he met at the university that they both teach at, and they end up meeting a taxi driver one day and moving into his apartment. The taxi driver's name is Khair, and he is a Muslim man who is quite religious. The other two are not really religious at all. Ravi is interested in the Islamic faith, and starts kind of talking to Khair about it and attending his Friday night meetings, Quran study meetings. And Ravi is from a kind of nominally Muslim background, but isn't religious particularly himself. So he's not really interested in that. It's kind of a love story in parts. Ravi has a well-written relationship with a Danish girl, and there's a little bit of kind of social commentary type stuff on that and the way that an Indian man and a Danish girl are treated and how their relationship is treated. It's also, well, look, I mean, it's three brown men living in Denmark, and it's kind of obviously going to be a bit of a social commentary about how they're treated and how they conduct their lives. And the book is told, the narrator, I feel so strange that he doesn't have a name, but I actually don't think he does. But he's telling the story looking back from an event or a series of events, and you don't actually find out what it is until the very end. So you kept reading because he talks about, you know, and this is a conversation that I told the police about just after that fateful day, or this is something that I didn't think about until afterwards, when in hindsight I probably should have picked up that XYZ. So it's kind of like it's leading you towards this thing that happened, and the cover, I think, and the fact that it's Karim is, I'm not going to say he's getting more and more religious. I don't think he is getting more and more religious, but it's more that the others are picking up on it. It kind of leads you to a certain conclusion about what these kind of events were. And I'm not going to go into any more spoilers, because I think if you'd like to read it, you really need to read it without knowing what happens and what the events were. But it's a book about assumptions and race and religion, and in that way it's an interesting and worthwhile read. But my main response to it is that it's a bit trying too hard. I feel like the writing tried a bit too hard. It was a little bit overdone. It was trying to be clever, and I felt like it was overwritten. which kind of rubbed me up the wrong way a little bit. But it's short enough that it didn't kind of bother me that much. And yeah, look, it's a good book. It's not amazing, and I'm not sure that I would kind of recommend it as a wonderful book that everybody should read, but you know, it's a good read, it's interesting, it'll make you think, and it will question, I guess, your assumptions, which is never a bad thing. Yeah, so those are the 3 books that I read recently. I am currently reading Bleak House by Charles Dickens, but it is slow going. I'm absolutely loving it, but I've just read these shorter books in quick succession, and this is like a completely different reading experience. So I today started reading the first book in the Mistborn trilogy, and I can't remember what it's called. I literally started it on the tram, so I've read about 10 pages because I wanted something a bit lighter and a bit fantasy. So that's what I'm going to be reading along with Bleak House. And I've also got a couple of books that I've ordered from Book Depository coming, which are Hyperion, a Maya Angelou book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, and also The Brief and Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde, is that what it's called? Which I'm going to be reading along with a lot of other people, and hopefully it actually arrives so that I can start reading it before the month ends. I think it's the Writers of Colour, or I think it's called the Writers of Colour book group in Goodreads. So yes, that's what I'll be doing now. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you have any more comments, and I'll see you later. Bye.